Hey, good afternoon to you. 407 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Jonathan Fahey will be with us, former acting ICE director. We'll get his thoughts on all of the terrorists who are coming into the country and what it means for us. Bradley Devlin is here from the American Conservative, one of many people being targeted by Ukrainian organizations now who are attacking Americans who are not subservient enough to the Ukrainian cause. And Joe Simonson will be with us at 5:30 from the Washington Free Beacon as he takes a look at Joe Biden's radical agenda and how it's eating itself. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The House today contemplating and moving on holding Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusing to give the audio over of Joe Biden's senile conversation with Robert Hur. They don't want that audio out there. So Democrats have dispatched some of their dumbest spokespeople to try and explain all of this. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, who is very rapidly rising to the top of the dumbest members of Congress list. She's definitely made a name for herself recently. And in that way, she was on CNN today, and even CNN saying, well, wait a second, why can't we hear the audio? And listen to this really just contorted rationale. I'm not even sure if you can really call this a rationale. Take a listen.
I mean, Congresswoman, we should note CNN is among those who have sued for access to these recordings. The transcript, of course, is public. The audio is not. Why shouldn't the audio be released?
I think that has been made clear. We know that there is a real concern as it relates to alterations and fakes, especially coming from this side. We just heard from Donald Trump how he basically wanted to signal to Russia, and he said, hey, if you're listening, Russia, right? So we know that there's a big concern about disinformation and misinformation.
She can't even read from the lefty sheet music. She doesn't even know how to do the quote. So let me, first and foremost, she's a member of Congress, so I'm going to try and take at least part of what she says seriously. She claims that, well, we don't want to release the audio for fear that people are going to be tricked by alterations and fakes. What? Well, wouldn't a world in which you don't release the audio be the one that's more vulnerable to people being tricked? Right? How hard would it be for someone to put Joe Biden's voice into AI and duplicate portions of the transcript and then release it to fake people out as if the actual audio had been released? You know, you can short circuit that entire thing by just releasing the real audio. The alterations and fakes world is the one that doesn't include the actual audio. So just release the actual audio. And then if somebody produces a fake after that, fact check, real easy. We just share the real audio. There's that. And then I don't even know what she's saying. It's like she says something about, like, Russia, if you're listening, alluding to President Trump's jokes on the campaign trail back in 2016. Everyone was talking about, oh, Russia, Russia, Russia. He's like, hey, Russia, if you have Hillary's emails, would you release them? Because we haven't seen them. 30,000 emails that she deleted, hiding from the American people. She was bleach bidding them. Remember that? Destroying evidence for fear that the American people would have access to it, to see how she was conducting herself on an off-the-book server. She was keeping a server in her bathroom in Chappaqua, New York, trying to hide information from public disclosure, trafficking in classified information on that server. What's the common theme between these stories, by the way, to the extent that there is one? The left hiding things that belong to you from you. This is government property that you're entitled to see, and they're refusing to release it. And Jasmine Crockett says, you don't deserve to see it.
We know that there's a big concern about disinformation and misinformation, and we know that they continually perpetuate it. And so the only thing that they would want to do with this audio is to basically misconstrue and pretend as if what people are reading is actually not what happens. And that is a real concern.
What?
If we had a party that...
What? Are you even following what she's saying? Is she following what she's saying? Does she practice this in the car or in front of the mirror in the morning at all? Does she She has no idea what she's talking about.
Lived up to being
She's just, honestly, she's filibustering on cable news.
the ethical people that we were elected to be, then I don't think that there would be a big concern. But we know that they cannot be trusted with anything that can be manipulated.
So if former President Trump had sat for a recorded interview with Robert Mueller, or if he is reelected and sits for a recorded interview in the future, that is not something that you would want released?
I'm not saying that. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. What I can tell you is that we're talking about an administration that has been completely transparent.
She occupies a world of double standards, of course. No, the only thing I'm saying is Joe Biden's senile voice should not be made public.
I doubt that Trump would ever sit for anything voluntarily. You know what? That's what this president did, though.
What?
He voluntarily did this.
Let me just remind you, by the way, in the Trump impeachment, the first one, Donald Trump voluntarily released the transcript of the phone call that the left had made the centerpiece of the impeachment. He released the entire transcript of the call. Donald Trump would never voluntarily do such a thing. He did.
This may actually end up producing a chill on people participating in a very voluntary way, because you may end up in a situation such as this. So I think you would have to look at the totality.
No, first of all, that's not true on so many levels. One of them is that the transcript's already out, so unless the audio doesn't actually match up with the transcript, release the audio. It's the same thing, right? Except now we get the perspective of hearing the man and his failing mind. But the other piece is, how many people are presidents of the United States who used to be vice presidents and senators who stole classified information? What are they even talking about? Oh, well, if a future senator steals classified information, they may be reticent to talk to prosecutors. They'll literally invent any rationale to protect this guy. This is downright North Korean.
Totality of the circumstances to determine whether or not this is something that we would need. In addition to the fact we know that Robert Hur is not some Democratic stooge. We know that this is one of their guys. We know that he did everything that he could to go outside of his way to go ahead and make the case for, I don't have enough to bring a case against the President of the United States, but let me go ahead and throw what I would consider to be shade on the President of the United States as much as I can.
What? Why? Okay, so if he was a right-winger, if Robert Hur was a big, right-wing hatchet man, why wouldn't he have recommended charges for the President of the United States? How stupid is this? Instead, he says, no, actually, I recommend no charges despite the countless thefts of classified information that Biden has done over the years, and the reckless storage of all of those things, the exposure of all of that classified information to people who should not have had access to it. I'm not going to charge him because of his senility, because he's a what was the phrase? A sympathetic elderly man with a poor memory. Yeah, that really sounds like a right-wing hatchet man. That guy, he was really out to get Biden.
And that did its own set of harm. People walked away from reading that report and felt as if the president had some sort of diminished capacity of some sort.
I love the theory that it was only the Robert Hur report that led people to that conclusion, that he has diminished capacity, and not the wandering around stages or squatting like he has to use the bathroom or failing to speak in English sentences. None of that. No, it was just the Robert Hur report is the only piece of evidence we've ever had to present the idea that Biden might be senile.
But you know what? For anybody that is concerned that that may be a real thing, they will have an opportunity to see the president perform in not one, but two debates against the former president. And we can see how people feel about whether or not his capacity is all the way there.
Uh-huh. All right, so that's Jasmine Crockett today. That's the best that the left could produce in order to justify why they're not releasing this audio, and of course why, by extension, Republicans are holding Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress, the Attorney General of the United States, who should be held in contempt of Congress not just for that. This is actually relatively low on the totem pole, given the abuses that Attorney General Garland has overseen at the Justice Department. The routine prosecution of Biden's political enemies definitely ranks higher than his failure to release this audio. But, of course, the White House, very concerned about this audio seeing the light of day. Very concerned. Let's see. I've got a phone call coming in. Mike in Washington, D.C., line 1. Mike, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. What's on your mind, sir?
Based upon Merrick Garland's actions, we should not just believe that the transcript is an authentic interpretation of the audio. We're entitled as taxpayers and citizens to know for ourselves what the tape actually says. And based upon his recent activities these last few years, I do not believe the transcript is an authentic interpretation of that.
That's a reasonable conclusion. I'm as cynical as you are. I constantly believe we're being misled because, boy, haven't we been misled about so many things. So it's entirely reasonable to have that suspicion now. And you want to clear it up for us? You want to convince Vince and Mike that this is all on the up and up? Release the audio that supports the transcript in the first place. Go ahead. Release it. Release it. But that's not what they're doing. They're hiding this thing, Mike.
Yeah, and that tells us something, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does, because they know they've become convinced that this is going to be very damaging for them. So they're suggesting
everything in nature, right? Everything in nature takes the path of least resistance. Why are they resisting it? It must be so bad that it's easier and better for them to go through this garbage than what's actually on it.
I think you're right. Mike, thank you very much. Let's see here. Carlo calling in from Arlington, line 3. Carlo, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir.
Hey, Vince. How you doing?
Good, Carlo.
You know, Joe Biden, he ran for the Senate when he was 29, but you have to be 30 years old to be a senator. So he was sworn in when he was 30 years old. And people talk about Robert Hur saying that President Biden shouldn't be charged with anything because he's an elderly man with a failing memory. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't an elderly old man 45 years ago when he started stealing this classified information, and nobody brings that up.
Well, exactly right. So he was what is it? They say non-compos mentis when you're not, your mind is not with you. But I guess he was compos mentis at the time when he was stealing all of these documents. And so they're saying that eventually, if you begin having a failing memory, you can't be held accountable for the crimes you committed. It doesn't make any sense. And it seems like it's only a rule that applies to Joe Biden.
About that. Here's one other thing. I saw a video. It might have been on Dan Bongino's podcast or Fox News when Joe Biden was first sworn in as a senator. And I don't know who the gentleman was he was talking to, a veteran politician, and he's telling Joe Biden, well, you're new here and you don't know your way around and you don't know the ropes, so you're still honest. And Joe Biden said, well, thank you for saying that I'm honest, even though it might not be true. I don't remember who he was talking to, but that was really something.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. So Biden said something to the effect of, I may not actually be all that honest, but thank you anyway.
Absolutely. I blew my mind when I saw that.
That's pretty good. I like that. We're going to have to look for that cut. That's a fun one. All right, Carlo.
One more
Thank
thing.
you.
I'm glad you're back on the air, and I'm glad you're back to 100%.
Thank you very much. I'm so thrilled to be back. It's great. Thank you, Carlo, very much.
All right, take care now.
You too. Donna, we haven't talked to for a bit. Donna's on line 2. Donna in Frederick. Hello, Donna.
Hi, welcome back. That was the first thing I was going to say. I'm very happy to hear your voice again. We've missed you. I mean, substitute host Mike is great, but we missed you, and we're happy to have you. I just wanted to say it's always an honor to be on this station with, especially these previous callers. They're very intelligent, and they have great points. And my point, I don't think is as near as articulate as either one of theirs, but I'm thinking about when it comes to the cover-up of information. I think this instant is just or this instance, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied, is just the tip of the spear when it comes to information that they're covering for other things, be it crimes or whatever, and it's always the cover-up that gets you.
So, we've seen various iterations of this, Donna, already throughout the Biden administration. One that comes to mind is, remember the cocaine they found in the White House? They find cocaine, and then the Secret Service and company, they launched like some sort of measly nominal investigation. Oh, we're looking into it. We'll see if we can't figure out who dropped it off. The White House, which is one of the most heavily tracked locations on planet Earth. They track every entry into every doorway of every person. They know everything. And they couldn't figure out they couldn't figure out whose cocaine it was, and then they destroyed the cocaine. You remember that? They destroyed it. They said, well, it's gone. We've destroyed it, and no conclusion. We have no idea who left it, but better luck next time. This feels familiar.
Same old. They make the same. They've got the same motives every time. It's the definition of insanity. They always expect a different result, and eventually that assumption will catch up to them, especially when crimes against humanity, whether it's the vaccines with Fauci or the sex trafficking and the fentanyl. People are going to get sick of this, and eventually it's going to come down on them. It's just a matter of time.
God willing, Donna. Thank you very much for your call, as always, Donna. Good to talk to you. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got David calling in from Virginia, line 3. David, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir. David.
Hey, yeah, hi.
Hey there, sir.
Is this Vince?
Yes, it is. It's Vince. You're on the air.
Oh, man. Hey, I have 5 honorable discharges. I joined during the Vietnam War Air Force. You are one of, I have a lot of information. I study stuff. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I tell people I'm a big Mark Levin follower, Dinesh, the whole bit. But anyway, I'm 69. So I have a hard time getting some of the people to listen to me, but also, the thing about the subs worries me, and there's a lot going on. I can't get too much out in just a little amount of time we have because I tell you, you and me could have some great conversations, but I was so glad, and I was praying for you that you came out okay, man, because I'm so glad you got this spot. I think that you got the better spot. You there? Oh,
yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
All right, man. God, Vince, thank God for you. We got to get this country back, buddy.
I agree with you so much, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much for that remark. I appreciate it, David. David, you heard him mention there that he's concerned about subs. What he's referring to is these Russian submarines that are just off the coast of Cuba right now, which is, of course, just off the coast of Florida. The Russians doing a little sub-rattling right now just off our coast. The Navy has their ships ghosting these things, following kind of closely, keeping an eye on them. We'll give you updates on that as we get them. Have you noticed the world has become more unsafe on Biden's watch? Like a lot more unsafe. Coming up, Jonathan Fahey will talk to us about the threats here in the United States and this Hunter Biden saga. He's got thoughts on all of it. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up from the American Conservative, Bradley Devlin joins us at 5 o'clock. And from the Washington Free Beacon, Joe Simonson is here at 5:30. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Hunter Biden convicted this week of lying on a gun background check form about his drug use. And here's how NBC's Nicole Wallace is handling it.
The New York Times reporting on conservative social media, the guilty verdict gets a yawn. Right-wing influencers have spent much of Mr. Biden's trial claiming without any evidence that the process was a sham in various ways, a trick by the Justice Department to appear balanced after former President Donald Trump was convicted in a Manhattan courthouse, or a show trial that would end in a not guilty verdict by left-leaning jurors in Delaware. Trump is charged by New York State, not the Justice Department. They also claimed without any proof that the trial was a distraction from other crimes committed by Mr. Biden. They included the conspiracy theory that he profited from business dealings in Ukraine with the help of his father. I mean, Claire, what Mike Memley just detailed is that when the plea agreement fell apart, so did the promise that there wouldn't be further prosecutions. He could very well be under scrutiny for those other things. And you know, the conspiracy that the whole trial was a sham, that many people were involved in a show trial, it's insane.
It's insane, she said. One of the other conclusions I have from that clip, by the way, is Nicole Wallace is an awful television host who should not read from the New York Times. She's not good at reading. Anyway, let's move on. Jonathan Fahey joins us now. He's a former federal prosecutor, former acting ICE director under President Trump as well. Jonathan, great to have you back with us, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad you're back.
I am glad to be back, Jonathan. So what did you make of the guilty conviction for Hunter Biden, and what isn't the media talking about here? What is Nicole Wallace leaving out?
Yeah, like, this little game she's playing is really annoying. But this conviction, I have to say, I was somewhat surprised, not because of the merits of it. And, I was thinking about it, a lot. And it's like, well, the case was overwhelming on the merits, but you never knew how a jury would react to Hunter Biden. But he was clearly guilty of this offense. And the Democrats that are always in favor of these gun crimes and gun charges apparently aren't anymore. But Nicole Wallace is, they're saying, conspiracy theories and all these other things. But I think the truth of it is, initially the Department of Justice did not want to charge him, and it wasn't until these whistleblowers came forward and he got charged, and they tried to give him a sweetheart deal where he wasn't going to have any consequences at all, which is really the theme of his entire adult life. And the amazing thing is, when he was going to have the sweetheart deal, he was not even going to be required to cooperate. And ask any federal prosecutor, when you have somebody that's pleading guilty, especially when you're giving them a really good deal, you'd have them cooperate against other people involved in what they were doing. So she's trying to, act like, oh, everyone's crazy. But the truth is, so much of what came out in this trial, particularly the laptop, shows how bad our mainstream media is, because they were mocking anyone that said that was real 4 years ago, and it turned out to be real, and they don't even acknowledge it now. But it really is a distraction in the sense that, yes, he's guilty of these offenses, but they're trying to make it seem like this is the only thing he did, and he's really just a victim, a drug addict, and, he should be felt sorry for. But they neglect all of the other things that he's involved with the tax crimes. And also, there's no curiosity from the mainstream media as to how somebody that does crack every 20 minutes is able to make millions and millions of dollars. It should seem at least odd to them that they may want to further, there might be some further inquiry needed, but it's like, that's just totally normal. I mean, I would love to, I actually prosecuted a lot of people involved in drug dealing, and there were no crack addicts that I knew of that were fabulously wealthy. And, but the media should ask that question, because nobody would go into business with this guy legitimately with all of these problems he has just hanging around.
Yes. And this idea that the right is advancing conspiracy theories here is undermined by the fact that we have plenty of evidence of an actual conspiracy to protect the Bidens. I mean, look at the IRS whistleblowers came out ahead of that sweetheart plea deal falling apart, and they revealed that there's an extensive effort within the federal government to protect the Bidens from meaningful scrutiny, and that the statute of limitations has routinely run out on some of the most serious charges that implicated Joe Biden in the family's business affairs, Jonathan Fahey. So we've got screaming leads here that the media, if they were serious, would actually dig into.
Exactly. And there actually was a conspiracy here between the media and the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign to delegitimize this laptop 4 years ago. That really was a conspiracy to keep information out of the hands of voters so they could make a decision at the ballot box, which, either go to the current or the recent Trump prosecution. That seemed to be a big deal to them. But it's just amazing listening to the media, because they are so incurious. And even the charges they have against Hunter Biden, they stay very clear of anything that implicates Joe Biden. It's the tax charges, which are easy to prove. He just didn't, he evaded his filing taxes, and then the gun charge. But they never get into, like, where did the money come from? What are all these shell companies? Yeah. What's actually going on here? Why aren't we asking some questions as to why is this family so wealthy? Like, what are they doing? Maybe they're exceptionally talented in some business, but it's funny how we never hear about what they actually do. Most people I know that are quite successful, if you ask them what they do for a living, they could at least explain it somewhat coherently, and you would think that somebody would be able to put this out there. But it's very interesting that people from foreign countries want to just, give them so much money, millions and millions of dollars, and no one can explain what they do for it.
Yeah, and today, so the media is reckoning with the reality that the laptop has been once again completely authenticated. In fact, even the Biden administration's Justice Department saying, yeah, it's legitimate, the contents of that laptop. The New York Times has a piece today trying to spin all of this. Their headline is Hunter Biden's laptop, revealed by New York Post, comes back to haunt him. They claim 3 paragraphs into this piece, Jonathan Fahey, that, quote, many of the claims made by the New York Post in its coverage of the laptop, in which the publication sought to link President Biden to corrupt business dealings, have not been proved, they say. But the laptop had enough incriminating evidence to continue to haunt Hunter Biden. So the new frame, as I understand it, Jonathan, is, the laptop's real, but you really can't trust it.
Yeah, isn't that always the thing? Like, oh, this isn't true, and then once it's proven to be true, it doesn't matter anyway, right? Like that game, right? And now we just move on. It's old news type of thing. Yeah, it's amazing to me how the media and, the mainstream media, and how bad they are, but it's funny how, easily, they're susceptible to censorship and things like that. They all went along with this. There was no one pushing back. It's just like with COVID, it's like our media doesn't, if the Democratic Party wants to kill a story, they're all in line. They don't even ask a single question. Yeah, and so the reason no corruption's been revealed maybe is because the media doesn't ask any follow-up questions.
Well, there's also the piece. There's also the reality that the New York Times has proven itself through the years to be a willing handmaiden of the intelligence community, including when it's advancing lies to the American people. So we've got, even this week, the 51 intelligence officials who all signed off on that dishonest letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was likely Russian disinformation. They're all sticking to their guns. They're saying, oh, no, we're not backing off of this. Fox chased them all down, asked them, and they all claim they're going to the extent that any of them communicated, they're all going to stick with this. But places like the New York Times, they carry water for these people who are demonstrated liars and who have routinely misled the American public.
Yeah, exactly. They've been completely discredited, and you would think they would at least have a day of accountability on the media or something to say, hey, you got this wrong. How did you get it wrong? What were you thinking? But instead, it's like they're happy about it because their point wasn't to get something right. Their purpose was to help the Biden campaign. And so they achieved what they wanted to do. And we'll wait as this election gets closer, the stories they'll try to kill and all these things. And we're going to see it again and again. And it'll be, they just say Russian and everyone's supposed to just, fall in line. And it's just so disgraceful and so dishonest. And it's embarrassing for our country to have a media like this.
Jonathan Fahey, I also want to talk to you about something you know quite a bit about. You're, as a former acting ICE director, we have this headline in the last 24 hours that 8 suspected terrorists with possible ISIS ties, this is NBC's headline, have been arrested in New York, L.A., and Philadelphia. They say that these men all came in over the course of the last year and a half, and they were vetted. They came across our southern border. They were vetted by the Biden administration, released into the country, only for later the Biden administration to reconsider and say, well, wait a second, these guys may be tied up with ISIS, and they've since arrested them. What's your reaction to this news?
It's really not surprising. I mean, the specifics, I guess, maybe are surprising, but it's not surprising at all that terrorists are coming across our border that want to harm us. And this administration, with their open borders policy, they've decided that this is an acceptable risk to the American people. They'd rather have open borders with a higher risk of terrorism than the alternative. And we have, risks of public safety, fentanyl, all of these things are acceptable risks because they want to have as many illegal aliens as possible. And I read part of their press release where they're talking about, we're going to, DHS and the FBI are working round the clock to, on terrorism stuff. And it's like, well, why don't they just close the border and stop people from coming? And then they don't even have to work around the clock and we'd all be safer. But it's just such utter nonsense that they invite people in. They encourage them to come. They provide them benefits when they're here and then act like they're trying to keep the American people safe. It's like, well, we know how to keep them safe or safer than they are, and they are unwilling to do that for cynical political purposes. And everyone knows they're doing it other than maybe a small segment in the middle, but everyone knows exactly what they're doing.
Right. And as I mentioned to Todd Bensman earlier, the idea that the FBI is working around the clock on this issue is belied by the fact that the National Security Division, which is in charge of this particular problem, terrorists coming into our country, has been focused on prosecuting more January 6 protesters. So they're not actually focused full time on this. They're focused on political garbage at our expense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whenever they're like, oh, we're never going to arrest or anything, it's like, okay, here we go, right? But yeah, the January 6 cases, we had the teachers, a few years ago, or the school boards where they tried to intimidate people from speaking out at school board meetings. They spent a lot of effort on things like that and a lot of other politically motivated types of prosecutions, or at least arguably so, abortion protesters and things like that. So to the extent this is a priority, they're certainly not treating it like it is, and they could be doing a whole heck of a lot more, but they should be honest with the American people that they're not going to stop letting people in. Maybe once they get here, they'll try to catch them, but they're not going to prevent them from coming here, which would make us a whole heck of a lot safer. And everyone knows that if they want to harm our country, if they're in a foreign country, it's so easy to get here. You could come here, falsely claim asylum, or just be one of the known gotaways, which who knows who those people are. And that's probably the really scary thing. And this administration won't do a single thing about it. And it's terrible.
And it sounds like the vetting process at this point is nothing more than a pinky promise. You're not a terrorist, right? No. And then you're let into the country? Is that about it?
It would seem like it. Who knows what it is? But I'm sure it's a few perfunctory questions, and they're probably on the politically correct side too, right? You go in. Do you hate America? Sure. You come on in. That type of thing. But I can't imagine the vetting is anything other than sort of an honor system that you're here to not do any harm, and you really have a legitimate claim. But again, that's not vetting. That's just that's a little game they're playing to act like they're doing something for our security. Why not just stop them from coming? That would make a lot of people safer and a lot more people happy. And also, we could provide a lot more services for American citizens than we do to the illegal aliens that we do now. But they're not the least bit serious. They're going to pretend to be serious for the next 4 or 5 months. They'll probably have a few more of these types of announcements. But if Biden's reelected, the border is going to be even more wide open than it's ever been, and it's just going to be a massive push for amnesty. And we all know that that's the game here. And they more or less say it when they're pinned down on it.
Well, they have to, so because take them at their word when they say that it is outrageous that we would deport illegal immigrants. What they're saying in the inverse is that the only plan is to give them amnesty.
Exactly. They say, that's not who we are as a country. All of those little cliches. So basically, deporting people is inhumane. ICE is an inhumane organization. The agents are, and all the people that come here illegally are contributing greater to the country than American citizens are. Therefore, they should get greater benefits. Yeah, it's so disgraceful. It's so insulting to the intelligence of the American people. This game they play that if you don't agree with open borders, you're racist, you're xenophobic. That's the game, to try to get everything into that lane to make it a race thing or something, so they could intimidate people from talking about it, for being honest about it, from looking at the pros and the cons of it. And they're going to, what they're doing now, we all know they're not really trying to be serious. But come November, if they win, the border is, there's no border.
The real bigotry is hating your own people so much that you allow other foreign nationals to take their country. That's the real bigotry here. Jonathan Fahey, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today, sir.
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 207. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
That's the vote just in. Merrick Garland held in contempt of Congress by the United States House of Representatives. That vote, 216 to 207, a single Republican voted no. That is Congressman Dave Joyce of Ohio saying, quote, "I cannot in good conscience support a resolution that would further politicize our judicial system to score political points." What a jerk. Yeah, I mean, Merrick Garland is the one who's politicized our criminal justice system. And he deserves to be held accountable for that, Congressman. You should be there doing that. Let's see. I've got Jason in Kensington on line 3. Jason, good afternoon, sir.
Hi, g'day, Vince. Good to see you back, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, all this stuff going on with the Democrats, in any other country in the world, this would be a slam dunk for the opposition party as far as exposing corruption and being able to, basically tell these guys to get the hell out of here, because it's just so funny that the stuff is right there for the Republicans to take, the wins to take, but they just can't step up, and it's almost like they're closet Democrats, really.
I know, and it bugs the hell out of me. This is why the voters need to be so united. If Republican lawmakers are going to be divided on this, well, then we need to be united in putting the right people in place to get a hold of it, Jason. So it's a tough one. They drive me crazy too. They really do. Hey, coming up, on the program, I've got Bradley Devlin from the American Conservative. American taxpayer dollars going to a Ukrainian organization that's turning around and attacking Americans for demanding accountability. And Joe Simonson will be with us from the Washington Free Beacon as the left's radical agenda starts to eat itself. It's a great story, and it's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.